Welcome, everyone. It is really so nice. I see Ansuya has dialed in. Welcome. It is so great to see all these familiar names on our list dialing in this morning and coming to chat with us. I'm going to hand over to my general manager, Rob Squire, who's going to take you through the preparations we've made to make sure that the learnerships and client relationships can continue after June the 30th, 2024, the date everyone dreaded. But just look at all these solutions that we've come up with. Rob, I'm going to be quiet now.
Thanks, Renette. Yeah, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I know it was a bit short notice, but yeah, there's been some sort of exciting, I suppose we could put it that way, some exciting changes that have been put in place now with the extension of a few qualifications. So yeah, we just want to share a bit of that news with you. And then also, as Renette said, just to kind of show how we're thinking about solutions for our clients as we head into the QCTO space. So we'll give you a bit of an overview of what the QCTO space looks like, which will be a bit of a recap for everyone. And then we'll get into some of those changes and then some of the solutions. But yeah, I think we'll just give it another minute or two just to let anyone else join that was going to join the session. And then we'll get started. Just from our side, I've got Charmaine and Carol, who will be assisting with the presentation today and also to answer any questions. And then I also have Claudine and Renette, who a lot of you guys will be more familiar with. So they're also on the call. So yeah, in terms of questions, we'll do a bit of a QA at the end, but also feel free to jump in at any time if you have questions about what we're talking about. And you can also just pop them into the chat. I'm also monitoring the chat. So if you've got any questions and you just want to type them in there, and then we'll either deal with them as they come through or save them up to the end and do it during the QA session. But yeah, let's just give it another minute or two and then we'll get going. Okay, yeah, so today we are talking about the QCTO. So as I mentioned, I'm just going to sort of give a brief overview of the QCTO and their mandate, and then we'll look at some sort of particular solutions and also some of the changes that have come through in the last week. So yeah, when we're looking at the QCTO, so obviously the QCTO is driven by the NQF Act and the Skills Development Act, and they are one of the quality councils that's managing one of the three sub-frameworks. So they have a particular view on creating occupational skills within the workplace. And I think that's one of the big changes in terms of moving from the CETAs to the QCTO space. So the QCTO was mandated with basically getting people work ready, which is why everything is occupationally based. And as you'll see as we go through this, there's a big focus on the workplace component, which is one of the major changes in the way that these programs will be delivered. So previously we kind of had practical modules and knowledge modules combined, which is what then created the integrated program that we delivered. But going forward, we'll still have those practical modules and knowledge modules, but now there's going to be a big focus on the workplace module. We actually have an example, which I'll run you through, of how we're unpacking this workplace module for our clients. So we'll chat a little bit more about that when we get there. Then just looking at the frameworks and how they overlap. So we had the FETC, who's responsible for NQFs 1 through 4, and then that transitioned into the higher education space. But now the QCTO is sort of overlapping both of those. So they'll be handling levels 1 to 8. And you can see there in terms of the way they've named their qualifications, everything is occupationally focused. So that's really the big thing. It's really about creating, at the end of the day, once the program's completed, the students are going to be work ready. That's what their major focus is on. So rather than just transferring theoretical knowledge, they want to transfer practical skills that can be used in the workplace. Then just kind of looking, this is the QCTO framework and their levels, so 1 through 8, again, just running through. So essentially, NQF 5 is post-matric level, but it's vocationally focused, so it's workplace focused, and then you're moving into your 6 and your 7 is your higher education. So I think for a lot of us on the call, we're kind of focusing maybe at at level 4, maybe into level 3, but kind of 4 upwards is where we're really focusing on the programs and what we deliver. In terms of skills programs, this has been one of the big changes as well. So historically, what happened is that the a CETA qualification was basically made up of a number of unit standards, as I'm sure you're aware, and then a lot of providers just kind of would pick and choose out of that huge list of unit standards, maybe one unit standard that would be worth 2, 3, 4 credits, and then they could align that to a short course. And then at the end of the day, that would be an accredited short course and it would be unit credit bearing. So one of the things now that the QCTO has done is they've kind of doing away with these very short unit standard based programs. And now a skills program has to be a minimum of 8 credits. There's been a bit of a concern within the markets around that and what that's going to look like. But yeah, so it's got to be a minimum of 8 credits. There's not actually a list of short programs that's available or skills programs that's available with the QCTO. What they've done is they've gone to providers like Novia One and said, you guys are basically free to create whichever skills programs you want, as long as it's aligned to the outcomes of the occupational program. And then we can submit these skills programs to QCTO for accreditation. And if they're happy with it, then you can roll it out. What hasn't really changed is the fact that you could still cluster all of these skills programs together to eventually reach the outcomes of a full qualification, as long as, however you cluster those skills programs, they meet all the requirements of the qualification. So again, there would still be a workplace component that would have to come into it at some point. So just looking at the occupational qualifications and how they play out. So you've still got the knowledge component and the practical component, as I mentioned. And this is very much how Novia One historically did things. We like to integrate the knowledge and the practical. So while the students are attending courses, they'll be given practical exercises that they either do as homework or that they complete within the session. And that will meet the outcomes then of the knowledge and the practical components. What's new is basically this big workplace component. So students will actually have to be in the workplace in a role relevant to the qualification they're studying, and then be able to complete that workplace experience. It's critical and it has to be completed. It's not sort of it's a compulsory module. So yeah, this is basically just what I've just said. So the knowledge and practical are covered in the classroom, much like they always have been, and then the workplace will be covered in the workplace. So students need to log evidence that they've collected to actually show that they're able to do what is being taught in the qualification. And I think there's probably just a good time to pause here and just sort of go into a little bit of detail around that because it is one of the big changes. So historically, there hasn't always been necessarily a good alignment between the program that someone is doing and or the qualification that they're doing and what their actual job role is. And that's okay because I mean, you might be sort of doing a course for aspirational reasons, so you kind of see yourself moving into a new role or whatever the case might be there. So you didn't necessarily need to be sitting in a relevant space. I mean, obviously it was somewhat relevant, but the big change now is because it's occupationally driven. If you're doing a risk practitioner program, for example, you need to be sitting in the risk space within the business because then a lot of this workplace evidence that they need to create and collate will be sort of organic in nature because it's things that they will be doing and doing it will actually be of benefit to the business. So if you need to do sort of, submit a risk assessment for a particular part of the business or whatever, if you're in that space, you'll probably be doing that as part of your job anyway. But it really is kind of taking the theory and practical skills you're learning and then implementing them into the workplace. It's also one of the reasons that these programs could potentially run a little bit longer. We're all used to a 12-month cycle. These programs, depending on the program and obviously the number of credits attached to it, they might be a little bit longer because it's going to take a bit of time to do this workplace experience. So it's just something that we all need to be cognizant of, especially in terms of your planning for BE spend and skills development points and all of that, is that the cycle could potentially move from 12 to 18 months. So we would definitely recommend that the sooner you implement a QCTO program, the quicker you'll be able to fix any gaps that might appear in your scorecard in terms of the shift from a 12 to 18-month program. It's not necessarily the rule that the program has to be 18 months, but for a lot of them, um, that could be the case. Then the other big change is the ISA examination. So having completed the knowledge, the practical, and the workplace component, all of those assignments and the logbooks and everything that goes along with the workplace would be submitted to Novia One. We will then assess that, and we will give the students a statement of results, much like it works now in the CETA space. But then with that statement of results, you'll have to the student will have to go to an AQP, an accreditation quality partner, who then administers the examination. So the students will need to be prepared. They'll need to study, probably do a little bit of extra studying for that. And then in few cases, there's an additional cost attached to the ISA. I think that's also a point to note. So what's happened is in a lot of instances with regards to AQPs, what the QCTO has done is they've gone out to industry, and where you've got a professional body. Again, I'll just use the risk space as an example. So you've got the IRMSA, who's the Institute for Risk Managers in South Africa. And what they historically did and still do is they were a professional body that offered professional designations to people in this space, which was kind of a private capacity thing. So if I'm working in risk and I decided I wanted to get a professional designation for IRMSA, I would go up and sign up with IRMSA, and I could write their exam, and then I would get a professional designation from them. So that's what they did. Now what's happening is they are also going to do the ISA exam. It's two separate things. So if you write the ISA, you don't get the designation. The ISA is kind of a standalone thing. The AQP IRMSA in this example is just administering that exam. And then where it's a professional body such as IRMSA, there's generally a additional cost. I think for IRMSA, it's around the region of 3.5 or 4,000 Rand for that exam, as of 2024, yeah. So and they do make that pricing available. And then in other instances where a CETA, for example, is still the AQP, and we're finding that there is no cost attached there. So it's not kind of always that the ISA exam has an additional cost. It depends on who the AQP is and how they're delivering that. Yeah, and then just a note on the slide as well, as we've made a distinction between an AQP and a QP. So the quality partner in most instances is still going to be the CETA. So for sort of banking or financial relevant qualifications, the quality partner is Bank CETA. So they're overseeing the quality assurance of that program. And then the AQP is the assessment quality partner. So that's whoever's responsible for administering the exam. It doesn't have to be different people. The QP and the AQP could be Bank CETA, where they've used these professional bodies. They distinguish between the QP and the AQP. And then Sheila, yes. So Novia One will be supporting the learners, and will also make all the dates available for the exams. And we can factor in the costs into the proposal if it's relevant. So, we're kind of just being flexible there in terms of how the clients want to work. Some of them want to handle the costs themselves. So what they've done is they kind of let the students do the program, get their statement of results, and then they'll apply to whoever they work for, and say, I want to write the exam, and then the business will make the funding available to them. But if you would like us to put it in, we can also just quote you on that if the pricing is available, and we can include that in the proposals to you. Then just looking overall how a program would roll out. So, sort of in the center of the screen there, you'll see that it's the curriculum or the occupational qualification towards the left there in the yellow. So we sort of start around about the middle of the screen. So the qualification is developed, and the curriculum modules are made available to us, and then we go about building out this curriculum and all the content that's relevant to you. We're still kind of running the knowledge modules and the practical modules as we have done. It'll be integrated material. So like I mentioned, the students in class will obviously get all the theory and all the knowledge, and then they'll do exercises. They might have some homework. And once they've completed all of that, they'll have their practical modules completed. And that sits with Novia 1. Then just underneath that, there's the work experience module, so that they will need to do in the workplace. They'll need to have a mentor or someone senior assigned to them that will then sign off on their workplace experience. So they'll produce all the evidence, and whoever their mentor is will sign off and say that that has been done. I'll show you how we've unpacked that a little bit in a few slides time. And then once the student has completed all of that and their mentor signed off on their workplace, and we've assessed all of the practical and knowledge work that they've given us, and they get issued with a statement of results. That statement of results will be given to the client and the student, and then equipped with that statement of results and whatever the necessary fees are, they will then approach the AQP, submit the statement of results and pay the fees, and then they will be ready to sit the ISA examination. They'll sit that in person. They'll need to go to an assessment center, write the examination. If they're then successful in completing that examination, generally I think it's around about 60% is often the passing mark. It does vary a little bit, but 60% is a sort of a good ballpark figure. Once they've written that exam and passed successfully, then they'll be issued with a certificate from the QCTO. So yeah, the ISA exam is a bit of a change, so we just need to be mindful of that. Then just sort of, an overview of how it all works in simple terms. There's the certificate comprised of the 3 modules, and then finishing with an ISA examination that's administered by the AQP. Just showing how the whole program works. So they'll register with us, complete the knowledge modules, write the exam, and then get issued with a certificate at the end of the program. So no, the mentors don't need to have a particular qualification. They just need to be in a position where they can verify that the work is done. So I'll show you, I think it's about 2 or 3 slides that's coming. We've kind of unpacked that so they have a checklist of what they need to check for. So we're not going to sort of give them this whole curriculum document and see if they can pull the objectives out of that and then check if the students completed. We'll actually give them a checklist of the things that they need to look for. So yeah, here it is. So in terms of the work experience, like I said, if someone is sitting in a relevant space to the occupational program, then a lot of what they create will be organic. And basically anything that they do will be eligible as work experience. Where it becomes a little bit not tricky is you're not just sort of logging hours. So you can't just say, oh, well, I worked 8 hours a day and I did that for 6 months. So I've got X number of hours. So there we go. Notional hours ticked off. You actually have to have a bit of a checklist in terms of, did I create a risk report? Did I do this? Which I'll unpack in this next few slides just to show you how it works. So this is what the curriculum document will look like that we receive from and sorry, I'm using a risk experience here just so that you understand, but it will be similar for any curriculum that we receive from the QCTO. So basically the objective here is that the student would need to prepare and present a research report. That's sort of the major outcome for this module. And then it kind of breaks it down into further steps. So they need to find what needs to be researched. Where are they going to do that research? They need to analyze the information. They need to structure it into a report with some headings there of how they can detail that report, and then they need to present the report. So, I mean, as you can see, if someone's working in the risk space, this is probably something that at some point the manager will ask them to do. Can you look at X and provide me with a report on how we're looking from a risk point of view here? And then they'll do that. So they may already have this that they can submit from previous work they've done, or they could do it during the program. And then what we do is now we take that. So we don't just give the students the curriculum and then hope that they can figure out what needs to be done. So we break it up, and this is the sort of document that the students will be given, just to ask them to work through that, what they need to cover in their report, some guidelines on how they should deliver that report, 5 pages long. We give them some suggestions on Grammarly as a tool that they can use just to make sure that everything is accurate and the spelling is good, etc., etc. Um, They'll also get some guidance in class when they're covering this topic. There'll be a knowledge module that will speak to research reports, so they'll kind of have an understanding of what's needed here, having attended the classroom sessions. And then they create this report and obviously need to present it to someone, however that works within the business. Then in terms of the supervisors, we'll give them a sheet like this now so that they don't have to sort of figure out for themselves whether that report is going to meet the requirements. So we give them quite a detailed little checklist here that they can just run through and tick it all off as yes, no, or not applicable, and then give some feedback and sign it off. So we're trying to make it as seamless for everybody as possible, not just for the students, but for the mentors as well, or the supervisors as well, so that they don't need, because we don't want this to if these things start to feel like a burden, there's going to be less chance of implementing them successfully. So we're trying to make it as streamlined as possible. Um, Then, yeah, just to give you an overview of the learning process, there's not going to be huge changes here in terms of how we've previously rolled out programs with you. So essentially, it's much the same. There has to be a workplace placement. That's maybe one of the big changes, but I think with most of our clients, that's often how it is anyway. So the student does need to be placed in a workplace, otherwise they won't be able to complete the workplace component. Then they'll enter into an agreement. There'll need to be a fixed term contract at least, or a permanent contract, whichever you're working. So much like if you do a learnership with an unemployed student now and you take them on a fixed term contract for 12 months, the duration of the learnership, it would be very much like that. Then we enroll them. The enrollment process, again, will stay very much the same, especially if you're doing a learnership, then we still will have to create those learnership agreements, get them signed, get all the supporting documentation from students, enroll them on the program. Once that's completed, or in unison, often as is the case, then they can start attending classes. Classroom will cover knowledge and practical skills. They'll complete the assignments, which will form their practical work. So that's kind of stock standard as we run a program. At this point, they give it in to us, we assess it, then they need to start doing the workplace components. And we kind of start to build it in from about midway. I think it really is a good model, not to kind of do knowledge, practical, and then right at the end start to worry about this workplace. Because like I said, it is quite a big and it's a critical component in the program. So I think the earlier we build it into the program and get the learners doing their workplace stuff, um, the more opportunity then they also have to ask questions in class that are relevant to their workplace experience, and we can give them guidance. They'll then compile this portfolio of all their workplace evidence, or all the signed off with the evidence and then the sign off sheets. And then we'll once again assess that. And then once the practical assessments and the workplace assessments are done, we issue a statement of results against that, which gives them access to the examination. So then, yeah, so there we put the pass mark as 65. So that's maybe one point to note as well. That's not working on this competent, not yet competent anymore. There's actually going to be a pass mark attached to it. And then that will result in the statement of results being achieved. Apply with the AQP to write your examination. You'll need to submit the statement of results and pay the fees, write the exam, pass the exam, and get your certificate. Just to reiterate this, the certificates don't come from the skills development provider. It's going to be from the QCTO. So where historically you would get that final certificate from the CETA, that now gets issued by the QCTO. So yeah, that's just an overview of the process. Maybe just a good point to stop quickly and just see, are there any specific questions around that I haven't covered? Yes, Kanisa.
Hi, Rob. Sorry, I joined a little late. I just wanted to understand, do we have a transition period to this? Because we already have learners on board, and this is quite substantial in terms of changes. So have they given us a transition period?
So the deadline is now at the end of June. So a lot of these we are going to be transitioning onto the QCTO space, and a lot of the legacy qualifications, the CETA qualifications, are going to be falling away.
Mm.
So yeah, so there has been sort of a few years in the making on this that there will be a transition. And yeah, Carol.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, so there is a teach out period to all the legacy qualifications that has expired. I think it's 2 or 3 years. So learners currently enrolled in legacy programs that have not completed the program still has the teach out period. And that is where Rob was saying, use the teach out period to start switching so that you
Mm.
reduce the gap in learnership periods.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And my second question is just around the way our program is structured is based on business need, right? So we'd go towards the end of the year and check where the need is in the business, and then based on that, we look for learners. My worry is our placement is based on what business needs, and will we then have qualifications that match each and every placement per se? Because then the work experience is there. I mean, they're here with us for 12 months, but now matching that to the qualification might be the challenge. How vast is the array of qualifications one can choose from?
Rob, do you mind?
Yeah, so at the moment there's about 700 and I think it's 769 or something. It's there or thereabouts. That's the number of registered qualifications with the QCTO. And what they have done now is that they've also given an extension on about 379 qualifications. So what they've done is they've looked at where either a qualification is in the process of realignment or where there's no like for like occupational qualification to replace the legacy qualification. And they've given an extension. They haven't given a final duration. They've put it as per the government gazette, they've given it as a 1 to 2 year extension.
Mm.
So minimum of 1 year, maximum of 2 years. Um, so yeah, with some of those programs, you'll have to just either look at the QCTO website to see if there's qualifications that are speaking to your business needs. Otherwise, engage with us as Novia One and we can assist you. And the other thing that we have always done is try to create bespoke programs that speak to the needs of our clients rather than just rolling out a generic
Mm.
curriculum that we get from CETAs as it was or QCTO now. So we'll still be doing that. And we'll obviously use the QCTO curriculum as our underlying curriculum because we need to achieve the learner against those outcomes. But we will still customize to suit our clients' needs as
Okay.
much as possible. But at the end
Okay.
of the day, they are going to have to write the ISA examination. So we can't deviate too far. Otherwise,
Mm.
it'll sort of end up where there's going to be a lot of self-study for learners. But we will customize things for your business needs.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think we'll have a more deeper discussion then once we know what we need.
Yeah, so I mean that's it. Speak to the team at Novia One, and we'll help you unpack your business needs against relevant qualifications available on the framework.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Perfect. And then yeah, just looking at the questions here quickly. So in terms of number of opportunities on the exam, Carol, do you know what that number is?
It's two. Thereafter, says specifically allows a one re-exam, and thereafter you have to redo the program or rewrite both papers. So they have two papers. If you fail one paper and you pass the second paper, then you only need to rewrite the first paper you failed. If you fail again, then you have to rewrite both again. But then there's got to be an interval, because then they say you've got to go back to your learning first. So essentially 2.
And then in terms of the POEs and Naledi, it will be much as it has been now. So the students will give us their first attempt, we'll mark that, we'll give them good detailed feedback. More often than not, that gets them over the line with their second attempt. But if there's any challenges during the POE development, we always assist the learners as much as possible to get them over the line. So that POE will remain much the same as it is on our current programs. It's just kind of the exam where we can't alter the 2 opportunities that they have. So Sheila, in terms of the timeline between the POE submission and the exams, it is a bit of a point of contention because again, the AQPs are setting these dates. So it'll kind of depend on when your program starts as to how big this gap is. But what we are hoping and what we've kind of heard a little bit of talk about is that obviously as the numbers on these programs grow, then they'll start building out more assessments. I think at the moment, some of them are running 2 annually. So it depends, they kind of have one towards the beginning and one towards the end. So depending on where your learners finish, that will be the thing. There does have to be a gap of generally about 3 months between when they complete and then when they write the exam. So kind of look at the minimum as 3 months. Obviously, depending on when the learner's finished and when the next exam date is, it could be longer. But again, chat to us and we'll get those dates so we can also help you with your planning to make sure, because obviously we don't want cases where students finish and then 8 months later they have to go and write an exam. Yeah, Sheila.
Sorry, hi. Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head because I was just thinking. So with us in Standard Bank, we have, our different cohorts start at different times. And I'm just listening to what you said, Rob, is if they may have only 2 exams, sometimes these individuals will only be deemed competent once they have left the bank. So I'm just thinking, how would that then impact, our funding? Because we report on number of individuals successfully completed. Would that now successfully completed be after the QCT or external exam, right? Because that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's a good question, and there have been, because I've also heard some people, and I mean, correct me if I'm completely wrong here, Carol, but I know some people have a feeling or an understanding that they can almost get it signed off at statement of results as completed. Obviously, to officially complete the QCTO program, you would need the exam. But in terms of funding, you might be able to do that with the statement of results.
Yeah, we'll have to get that clarification from CETA, but that's fine. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sheila,
Thank you.
I do advise the industry to engage with the CETA
Yeah, we
because
will.
we've had a sense that they are open to considering the statement of results as the learning completion point or the learnership completion point. But that is not up to us. That is truly
Yeah.
sits with the CETA and
Well,
the
sits-
learnership department.
No, absolutely. No, thanks. Thanks, Carol.
You're welcome.
Yeah, because you might have sort of 2 points here. As the one, you're doing it as a learnership for funding purposes and things, and then the statement of results is effectively has always been the end of a learnership. So once you've got your statement of results, then you get your certificate issued. But that statement of results is the end of the learnership. Then you have the qualification, which requires the certificate. So yeah, I mean, we'll
Yeah.
also keep engaging, but it will be interesting to hear what the feedback is around that. Yeah, and then I mean, I was sort of just thinking about it and having an informal discussion in the office yesterday, and I think what they maybe missed in terms of these exams, exams work well at a university or in the higher education space where you tend to have set intakes. So we all start today, and in 12 months'
Yeah.
time, we're all finished and we're all exam ready. But they haven't maybe thought about how the current landscape works in terms of rolling intakes. We don't all start at the same time, so we can't have one exam date because then some students are going to be waiting 8 months while the other guys will just finish and all the knowledge will be fresh in their heads. So hopefully that's something that, hopefully more
Yeah.
exam dates become available.
Sorry, and sorry, and I'm just thinking out aloud that we at also at the risk of these individuals not actually going for their final exams, right? So if I think of learnerships, even individuals not absorbed in the bank, It's the onus is to go and complete. And how many of them will actually complete? I know it's not a thing for this, but I'm just already thinking they far away. But yeah, we'll have to manage it. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very sad if we start seeing instances where people only sort of take it up to statement of results point and then don't sort of do that last bit to get over the line. You know, I think it's almost going to be more harm than good in terms of what they're trying to achieve here. You know, we really need to make a concerted effort to make sure we keep the students engaged and get them over the line to get that qualification.
Mm, mm. No, for sure. We'll work on it. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. Okay, and then just looking at some of the, so as I mentioned, there's about 379. I mean, if you start looking around, you'll find that there's been all this talk of the list. So what was the skills development in 2024 remembered for? It will be the list. Everyone's been talking about the list. So in terms of the list, like I said, there's 379 qualifications from across all the SETAs that have been granted a 1 year, minimum 1 year, maximum 2 year extension. And this is on the enrollment period. And so I think going back to Carol's earlier point, we had a 30 June deadline for enrollment, which means after 30 June, we can't enroll new students onto the legacy qualifications. As Carol mentioned, if they're enrolled prior to that date, they have until 2027 to complete the program. So there's a teach out period of 3 years. And so 30 June 2027 would be when all those programs would have to be completed. And any learner who's not yet competent on 30 June 2027 would have no more opportunity to complete. So in terms of the extension, what we're talking about here is the enrollment date. So instead of 30 June 2024, we're now going to go to at least 30 June 2025. This is for qualifications that the QCTO has identified with the SETAs that are either in the process of realignment or that there's no like-for-like replacement on the framework as things stand. So especially for the banking clients, one of the big ones to come through was the National Certificate in Banking, NQF5, that has been extended. And then also all of the generic management programs that sit with Bank SETA and also with Services SETA. So all those GenMan qualifications have been extended. GenMan's been an interesting one because obviously almost the reason why it was, I don't want to say missed, but why it hasn't sort of gone through the process is because, you know, a general manager is not necessarily occupationally based. You know, that person would be an operations manager or a sales manager, then it's kind of occupationally based. So I think what's been the holdup with general management is they're kind of trying to look like what does the general manager look like? Or is it, you know, like I take myself as an example, I'm the general manager, but where does that, you know, that's not occupationally based. So I would be like a general manager, education and training, because that's where I sit. And then they would give me sort of general management skills, but also skills specific to the education and training world so that I can take that and implement them into here rather than just creating a general manager. So yeah, so this should be some good news for quite a lot of you that do the general management qualification. I know it's quite a well used one, so we've got another year at least on that. So we don't have to worry about 30 June 2024 as a cutoff for that. We can continue rolling it out. Like I said, there's a full list. Again, just chat to us. We do have the list. So if there's anything, you know, we just try to pull out some of the most relevant ones to our clients, but obviously there's a few more. Maybe a good one to just, you know, I know the FMI has been quite a big one, which unfortunately didn't get extended. There is currently a working group in place to realign that qualification. And off the back of that is kind of by the definition of the Gazette, which said programs need to be realigned. We're hoping that maybe there's a possibility that FMI could also be included in this extension. But, you know, we don't want to sort of make false promises. So there's no expectation there. It's just something that is being discussed that potentially it could be included, which I think would be good for us. But we don't want to say, yes, it definitely will at this point. Obviously, as soon as we hear anything, we'll let you know about that one. Then just to kind of give you an idea of how we're looking at moving into the QCTO space and how that might look is So if we're taking it now and we're looking at, say, a Gen Man 5 in terms of a leadership journey that's in your business for your staff, that the qualification would be National Certificate Generic Management, as it has been now, sitting with Bank Seater, 162 credits. The program would be called whatever, Agile Leadership, or whatever we would like to call that. That's where we kind of do the customization. So we take the underlying qualification, create this nice customized learning program for clients that meet your needs while still meeting the needs of the requirements. And then in terms of you claiming, you would still use the National Certificate Generic Management as your underlying learnership. There. Then, maybe also good to note is that we have also received CHE accreditation now. So we have a certificate in Agile Leadership available at NQF6 in the CHE space. That's pretty exciting. And we are also looking at getting accreditation for some more CHE programs. So we're going to be expanding our CHE offering over the next while. But then, in terms of that, we could now take this program that we've created, this Agile Leadership program, and then you can still underpin it with the generic management in terms of your learnership. While we put that in, so this is a nice example for you, is that with the CHE programs, we're allowed to change up to 50% of the curriculum without having to reapply for accreditation. So it gives us nice flexibility there to create a bespoke program that still meets the needs and still has the learnership underpinning it. So that's just how we're thinking about customization and why we like the CHE space, because it gives us a lot of scope to change things and still make sure that we meet the minimum requirements for the learnership. So that's just looking at it from a leadership perspective. In terms of business banking, just as an example, so it's quite a nice program. So on the QCTO framework, you have business banking officer, practitioner, banker. They have been created as an articulation. So you go through 5, 6, and 7. And then obviously your learning program there, we can call that whatever we want. Essentially, that would be your bespoke program. And then what is happening is that there's also, in terms of learnerships, there's not a lot of learnerships currently registered on the QCTO, which has also been a bit of a cause for concern, obviously, because people are wondering, how am I going to get my funding and my skill points and all of that if there's no learnership? What the QCTO is saying is that they are going to blanket all of their programs. So we won't have to apply. All QCTO programs will become learnerships. It's not the case right now, but it will be the case. They will all be learnerships. So in terms of looking at Business Banker 5 there, you'll see I've said you can either use, once the QCTO gives it learnership status, you could use that as your learnership. Alternatively, for the next at least a year, you could use the National Certificate in Banking as your underlying learnership there. For level 6, the business banking practitioner, again, we can use QCTO, or we could use NCB, or we could use a generic management program, and likewise for 7. The way we're kind of looking at this business banking qualification is because, it speaks a lot to, so the banking officer speaks to financing for small businesses. So how do I, as a business banker, assist my small banking clients? The level 6 looks at medium sized clients, and then the 7 looks at large clients, and it's also got a little bit more business analytics in it, which is good. But essentially, it doesn't speak to specifically financing in any one area. So from a banking perspective, it's nice because you could use that, and it's how do I solve the financing and give my clients, how do I assist them with their financing? But we could do that in a vehicle and asset financing way, or so there's a lot of scope then to customize these levels of programs. So it's a nice qualification, and again, we're just using this as an example to show that we're not going to lose that nice customization we always gave you. We'll work within the parameters of the curriculum, but give you nice bespoke programs. So in terms of the CHE quals, yeah, so we are looking at that, and we would try and come up with a solution for you in terms of having them for a learnership registration. If you just went for a straight CHE program, then no, it wouldn't give you learnership. That would then come out of a bursary spend. So it would speak more to your bursary spend than your learnership spend. But we are going to, again, just chat to us, and we'll tell you how we can use the CHE qualifications with the learnership underpinning it. So there definitely will be options there. Okay. So that's everything. Yeah. I think, yeah, we've dealt with some questions, but yeah, are there any additional questions that anybody would like to ask at this time? Any concerns anybody has? I think one thing that I would just like to reiterate, yeah, okay, go for it, Carol.
Thanks, Rob. I just wanted to also add, when we're looking at the workplace experience, obviously, when a learner's in a workspace that is relevant, it's easy, as Rob said. But you could be faced with a situation where a learner wants to work towards a workspace. That can still be done as long as the learner then has access to that desired and related workplace, so that they can still get the kind of evidence that the curriculum might want from them. But again, like Rob says, speak to us. Let's help you identify how we can solve it for you. But you have to approach it very carefully to make sure that the learner is not disadvantaged when it comes to the work experience. Thank you, Rob.
Yes, can you say?
Rob, I just wanted to check. You spoke about the training period possibly moving from 12 to 18 months. Can you give us an example of what would cause us to have an additional 6 months?
So the qualifications are very dramatic in terms of the spread, in terms of the credits, so we're kind of all used to 120, maybe to 160, 70 odd credits for a program. Whereas some of the QCTO programs being rolled out, I think, I've seen 565 credits. So it's a big qualification. So it would just be there. I mean, I think it all comes down to, and yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I wanted to say is even with this extension now for 1 year, you need to start thinking about how, I wouldn't just now kick the can down the road for another year in terms of QCTO, because, I know in terms of your spends and things like that, transitioning from 12 to 18 months can obviously have impacts there. So, the sooner you start implementing the QCTO programs with potentially an 18-month time frame, the sooner we get them rolling, the quicker you'll be able to see where a gap might come in terms of, and we can correct for that, so and then obviously once you get that cycle sorted, it'll kind of be much like how you work with the CETAs now on the 12-month cycle, and you can figure it out in terms of the 18-month. So I would get that in. I would start with QCTO programs as soon as possible to try and mitigate that risk insofar as possible. But yeah, again, in terms of the programs, just chat to us, and we can give you an idea of how long the respective programs would be. The main change, so in terms of us delivering the knowledge and practical, that's still going to be easy. In fact, I think in most cases now with the learnerships, we actually complete that in less than 12 months. And there's not going to be a significant change there. We can get that part completed very, very easily and comprehensively within a 10 to 12-month frame. It's more the workplace experience component. So depending on how big that is, that's where the extra time might come in. But again, if you've got if the learners put forward for a program are sitting in a relevant space and have access, or not even if they're in a relevant space, because again, you might be looking to say, oh, well, we want Rob to actually move into that role. As long as Rob has access to somebody in that role that I can work with when I have to do a lot of this workplace experience stuff, that can give me access to the tools I might need, then there is opportunity to be more effective with the workplace experience. So it all comes down to those kind of how well this is planned and how relevant the learners are to the qualification. So yeah, there will need to be a sort of good coordination between us and you, in terms of how we get the students through the programs.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. Yeah, so we are breaking them down into modules. So we have material on the majority of the QCTO programs that we currently have. So we can definitely give you a modular breakdown, and just chat to us and we can give you an overview of the number of modules that's involved in the program. The only thing there is, again, you still want to have a bit of a discussion, just because some of them look quite small, like they've literally just put 2 modules. The actual, when you unpack the outcomes on the module, it's a little more comprehensive. But yeah, we can definitely give you an overview of the modules and have a discussion around that. No issues there. Okay, anything else from anyone? Okay, perfect then. Yeah, I mean, like I said, reach out to us if you've got any concerns or queries. Let's start having these discussions and looking at how we can implement these programs for you. I saw there were quite a few requests for the deck. We can definitely share the deck with you, the modules. So yeah, we'll share this presentation afterwards. I'm sure we can also share a recording with you if you want, or if there's anyone else you want to share it with, we can do that for you. Yeah, thanks very much for your time, everyone. It's good to see. It's a lot of names I've heard, but haven't necessarily met everyone, and I don't think everyone's met me. So, good to meet you all. And yeah, please do chat to us if you have any questions or concerns. And yeah, let's embrace the QCTO space rather than being scared of it. It's going to come eventually. So, let's not put it off. Otherwise, we'll be having the same discussion in a year's time. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.